I knew something was off when my dad asked me what color balloons I was getting for my wife's birthday dinner. Not if I needed help. Not if I'd like him to bring a cake. No, he wanted to know the color scheme. Like he was designing the whole thing. At the time, I brushed it off. Thought maybe he was just trying to show interest in his own weird way. But now, standing in the middle of a fancy restaurant decorated with Happy Birthday Emma banners, while everyone sang to my stepsister and my wife stood frozen beside me, blinking away tears, I realized that wasn't curiosity. That was reconnaissance. And I'd walked right into an ambush. Let me rewind. My name's Drew, I'm 33, and I'm one of those people who doesn't throw parties for myself. I don't need confetti or cake or a big surprise to feel loved. But my wife, Lila, she's the kind of person who plans scavenger hunts for our anniversary. She leaves notes in my car before I drive to work. She always remembers everyone's birthdays, even for my coworkers she's never met. She gives so much of herself to others and never asks for anything in return. So this year, for her 30th birthday, I wanted to do something special. Something that made her feel just as seen and celebrated as she makes everyone else feel. Now, here's where my family dynamics start to come in. My parents divorced when I was a teenager, and my dad remarried a woman named Cheryl a few years later. Cheryl came with her own daughter, Emma, who was about 4 years younger than me. At first, I didn't mind her. She was bubbly, talkative, a little too into drama club, but she was a kid. Things only started to shift as we got older, especially after my dad started treating her more like a real daughter than me. Like when I graduated college and all I got was a congrats text while Emma got a brand new car for passing her driver's test. Or when my dad skipped my wedding rehearsal dinner because Emma's performance was opening night. It wasn't just favoritism, it was erasure. And Cheryl? She only made it worse. Always doting on Emma. Always calling me the quiet one, like it was some kind of defect. I learned to keep my distance. Be polite. Not make waves. But this was different. This was for Lila. And Lila, bless her heart, always tried to include my family, even when I didn't want to. She never once said a bad word about Emma, even after she wore a white dress to our wedding and gave a toast that somehow included her own birthday halfway through. I still remember Lila's tight smile, the way her fingers clutched mine under the table. She's just young, she whispered. Let's not ruin the night. So this year, I was determined to give Lila the perfect night. I picked her favorite restaurant, a cozy Italian place tucked downtown with candlelight and live violinists. I called them weeks in advance, reserved the back room, customized the menu to include all of Lila's favorite dishes. I even designed a slideshow of our memories to play on the little TV screen above the fireplace. I made sure the flowers were yellow, her favorite, and that there were exactly 30 candles on the cake. Every detail, I triple-checked. I invited her friends, her co-workers, even her old college roommate who flew in just for the night. And yes, I invited my dad, Cheryl, and Emma. Because Lila would want them there. Because I still believed, in some naive corner of my brain, that maybe, just maybe, this could be the moment my dad stepped up. Acted like a real father. The first weird moment happened a week before the dinner. My dad called me, said he had some updates on the party. I froze. What updates? I asked. You're not planning anything, are you? He chuckled. Just thought I'd take a little pressure off you, son. You've got a lot on your plate. I tried to stay calm. I already handled everything, Dad. Just show up. That's all I need. Got it, he said a little too fast. Of course. Just show up. Then the day before the dinner, I got a text from Cheryl. Just a smiling emoji. No context. Followed by, Emma's going to look so cute tomorrow. I stared at my phone. What did that mean? I typed back. You mean Lila, right? No response. The next morning, Emma posted an Instagram story of her getting a blowout and her nails done. Big night coming, was the caption. Not a mention of Lila. My stomach started to churn. I told myself I was overthinking. Maybe she had another event. Maybe she was just dressing up to support my wife. Maybe I was paranoid because of years of feeling second tier. But nothing could have prepared me for what happened that evening. We arrived at the restaurant right on time. Lila looked stunning. Light blue dress. Hair curled just the way she liked it. She squeezed my hand as we approached the door. You didn't have to do all this, she whispered. I wanted to, I said. You deserve it. I opened the door. And that's when it hit me. The first thing I saw was pink. Pink balloons, pink streamers, a massive banner stretched across the wall. Happy 26th birthday, Emma. Her name was written in glitter. On the tables were little printed cards that read Emma's night. And the cake. Oh God, the cake was a three-tiered monstrosity with her face printed on the top. I turned to Lila. Her face was pale. Her mouth opened, then closed. And then the worst part. The room erupted in song. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear young May. Lila didn't move. Emma came bouncing up, wearing a tiara. A literal tiara. Drew. Lila. You made it, she squealed, pulling Lila into a hug like nothing was wrong. Isn't this amazing? Dad and Cheryl did everything. I had no idea. Neither did we. My dad approached, clapping me on the back like he hadn't just committed social arson. We figured we'd combine the celebrations. 2 birthdays, 1 big night. Efficient, right? I stared at him. This isn't her birthday. Her birthday is in July. He grinned. Well, we're celebrating it tonight, aren't we? Lila pulled away gently, her eyes glassy. She didn't say anything. She just walked toward the bathroom, shoulders shaking. I stood frozen, fists clenched. That was the moment. The moment I realized this wasn't a mistake. This wasn't poor communication or cluelessness. This was deliberate. This was a takeover. And I wasn't just going to let it slide. I took a deep breath, turned slowly back toward the room, and scanned every smug, unbothered face in the crowd. That's when I knew. This was war. I didn't follow Lila right away. Somehow, I knew she needed a moment alone, and honestly, I wasn't sure if I could trust myself not to explode. I just stood there in the doorway, trying to catch my breath. My hands were still half curled into fists, and I could feel my nails pressing into my palms. My ears were ringing, but not from the noise. From the rage. From the disbelief. From the sick, sinking feeling in my stomach that no matter how hard I tried to give my wife something special, someone in my family would always find a way to stomp all over it. I don't know how long I stood there, but eventually someone shoved a plastic flute of champagne into my hand. Loosen up, Drew, Cheryl said, laughing. You look like someone died. I looked at her, really looked at her, and realized she was beaming. She was dressed like she was heading to the Met Gala, wearing a rhinestone dress and some chunky gold earrings that screamed, I want everyone looking at me. She linked arms with Emma, who had just finished opening a gift bag from one of her friends. Inside was a designer clutch. Lila had wanted a simple dinner, maybe a nice book or a spa gift card. Emma was already on her 3rd luxury brand. I thought this was Lila's night, I said slowly, trying to keep my voice steady. Cheryl blinked at me like I'd spoken another language. Well, yes and no, she said, tilting her head. Emma's birthday is only 2 days before hers, so we thought it'd be cute to do a little joint celebration. It saves everyone a trip. This isn't a joint celebration, I said, the anger seeping through. This is her party. You replaced everything. Oh, please. You didn't even have a real theme, she scoffed. I mean, yellow flowers? That's not festive. This, she said, waving a hand around the room. This is a party. I didn't answer. I just turned and walked toward the bathroom. Lila was sitting on the little velvet bench by the sinks, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. She wasn't crying anymore, but her expression was blank. That quiet kind of pain, like the air had been sucked out of her. She saw me in the mirror and gave me a weak smile. I'm sorry, I said. Her lips trembled. It's not your fault. It is, though. I should have known they'd try something. I should have. God, I should have checked everything. She stood up slowly, smoothing her dress. You tried. You did more than anyone's ever done for me. That room was never meant for me. That was a show. For them. For Emma. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. Do you want to leave? We can go somewhere else. Just the 2 of us. Right now. She hesitated. Part of me does. But part of me doesn't want them to win. And that was Lila in a nutshell. Kind, loyal, stronger than anyone realized. I nodded. So we walked back in. That was the moment I decided. If they wanted to play games, fine. I'd play. But I wasn't going to play nice anymore. At first, I tried to be civil. I found the friends we invited, Lila's co-workers and a few people from her book club, clumped awkwardly in the corner. No one knew what to do. They'd arrived expecting a birthday dinner for Lila, and now they were sitting under a banner with someone else's face on it. I'm so sorry, I said quietly to her co-worker Amanda. This isn't what we planned. Amanda leaned in. We figured. Lila mentioned her favorite color was yellow, not pink. And this, she trailed off, glancing at Emma, who was currently holding court in the center of the room. retelling a story about her most recent trip to Mykonos. This is something else. I thanked her and sat beside Lila, who had barely touched her plate. Across the room, my dad raised his glass. Speech, someone called. I groaned under my breath. My father stood. Everyone, can I have your attention? He said, clinking his glass. We're here to celebrate someone very special tonight. Someone who lights up every room she walks into, who brings so much joy to all our lives. Our dear Emma. Applause erupted. Emma did a little princess wave from her chair. Lila stared at her plate. And of course, he added, almost as an afterthought, we'd also like to wish Lila a happy birthday as well. There was a scattered clap. Someone coughed. Emma stood up, took the mic from the DJ. Yes, they'd hired a DJ, and launched into a 5-minute thank you speech that included the phrases, "My journey through self-love and influencing is a full-time job." When she finally sat back down, the music blared again, some bass-heavy pop song, and Cheryl pulled my dad up to dance. Lila turned to me and whispered, "This is like watching someone else's dream while you're trapped in their nightmare." I didn't laugh. I was too angry, but I still hadn't seen the worst part. That came about 20 minutes later when the slideshow started. The one I'd made. The one that had our photos, me and Lila, from college to marriage to vacations to goofy little selfies on the couch. I'd spent hours curating it, adding music, transitions, quotes that meant something to us. Only now, it had been altered. The first slide came up and I froze. It was Emma, as a baby, with a sparkly title, Princess Emma, A Life in Pictures. The photos kept rolling. Emma at ballet. Emma at graduation. Emma in a bikini on a beach. Emma posing with a dog. Every single slide, a tribute to her. Where's ours? Lila whispered. I was already standing. I found the restaurant manager near the bar and asked to speak to the AV guy. He looked confused. The man who brought the USB said to play it when the cake comes out. What man? I asked, even though I already knew. Older guy, gray hair, tan jacket. Of course. I grabbed the mic from the DJ and shut down the music. Sorry, I said. There's been a mistake. That slideshow wasn't meant to be played tonight. There were murmurs. Emma looked like she'd been slapped. My dad walked up, chuckling awkwardly. Drew, don't make a scene. You replaced the slideshow I made for my wife, I said, loud enough for the room to hear. I spent days working on that. You took it, and you swapped it for this. It's a shared night, he said coolly. We thought it'd be nice to include Emma. This was never supposed to be about Emma, I snapped. This was Lila's birthday. I invited you. I planned this. And you hijacked it. Cheryl swooped in. You're being dramatic. We thought this would be more fun. I looked at Lila. Her eyes were shining again, but she wasn't crying. She was done. Emotionally checked out. Sitting perfectly still in her chair like the whole thing was a bad dream she was waiting to wake up from. I faced the crowd. I'm really sorry to all of you who came here for Lila. She didn't deserve this. None of this was what we planned. My father and his wife decided this night should be about someone else. The DJ cut the mic. My dad gave me a look. You've embarrassed us. No, I said. You did that all on your own. Then, as if the universe was trying to really nail the point home, the cake came out. 3 tiers. Pink frosting. Happy birthday, Emma, piped across in cursive. Lila stood up. I think I've had enough, she said softly. I followed her out. But we didn't go home. Because that wasn't the end. Something had cracked open in me that night. Not just anger. Not just disappointment. Something deeper. Something that had been building for years. Because this wasn't just one ruined birthday. This was every birthday. Every holiday. Every moment I'd been pushed aside. Every time my dad acted like I was optional. Every moment Emma was given the spotlight without earning it. Every time Cheryl made my wife feel small. It was all adding up. And I was done. No more polite smiles. No more quiet tolerance. I was going to make this right. But not by yelling. Not by arguing. No, I had a better idea. And once the plan started taking shape in my mind, I couldn't stop it. It was too perfect. Too poetic. Because if they wanted to make everything about Emma, then I'd give them a night they'd never forget. We didn't say much in the car. Lila sat staring out the window, her hands folded neatly in her lap, like she was trying to hold herself together. I kept glancing at her, searching for words that didn't sound hollow. What do you say after something like that? Sorry your birthday was hijacked by a grown woman in a tiara? Sorry my family thinks you're invisible. It all felt pathetic compared to what had just happened. We ended up at this little late-night diner, one of those spots with cracked red leather booths and coffee that tastes like it's been brewing since the 80s. The waitress didn't recognize us, didn't know whose birthday it was or what kind of night we'd had. That made it the perfect place. We ordered pancakes at midnight, and for the first time in hours, Lila smiled. That's when I knew we weren't broken. Not really. Bent. Sure. Bruised? Definitely. But Lila didn't need a spotlight. She just needed someone who would see her, and I wasn't going to let anyone dim that light again. Especially not my family. Still, the days after that night were rough. The fallout hit fast. Cheryl sent a long, condescending text about how disappointed she was in my outburst. She called it immature. Said I embarrassed Emma in front of her friends. Not one word about Lila. Not one sentence acknowledging the sabotage or the pain they caused. My dad. Radio silence. Not a call. Not even a single "hey, let's talk." The only person who did text me, shockingly, was Emma. Her message read, "Didn't realize you were going to be so territorial over a dinner party. I hope this doesn't cause long-term drama." That would be exhausting. I didn't respond. What could I even say to that? We ghosted them after that. Didn't show up to Cheryl's birthday. Skipped Emma's influencer milestone party, don't ask. My phone rang a few times, but I ignored it. Lila and I needed space. We needed to breathe without their voices in our ears. But silence has a price. It didn't take long for the whispers to start. My cousin texted me. "Hey, I heard you screamed at Uncle Mike during Emma's party. What happened?" I hadn't screamed. I'd raised my voice. Once. Another relative sent. I heard Lila stormed out crying. "You okay, man?" That was the narrative now. Not the truth. Just the version where I was the problem. Where Lila couldn't handle sharing the spotlight. Where I ruined Emma's big night. I didn't try to correct them. I was too tired. And that's when the real low point hit. One morning, Lila found an old birthday card in the mail, postmarked before the party. It was from my dad. A cheesy Hallmark card with a pre-written poem and a $25 gift card to Olive Garden. There wasn't a single handwritten word inside. Not even "happy birthday." She laughed, this bitter, disbelieving little sound, and then quietly put it in the trash. She didn't cry. Not this time. That made it worse. It was around then I realized I was holding on to something that didn't exist anymore. Or maybe never had. A version of my dad that would step up someday. See me. Respect my choices. Love my wife. But that man wasn't coming. So I made a decision. I was done chasing validation from people who couldn't even say my wife's name in a toast. I poured all my energy into rebuilding. Not for revenge, not yet, but for us. First, I started with Lila. She always talked about opening her own Etsy shop. She makes the most beautiful hand-painted bookmarks, pressed flower journals, and watercolor prints. She dabbled here and there, but between work and stress, it never took off. So I turned our guest room into a mini studio. Got her better supplies. Helped her photograph everything. Built a clean website. Wrote descriptions. Made her a little logo. Nothing fancy, just something to say, "I believe in you." She cried when she saw it. Good tears, this time. We listed her first 20 items in April. By June, she'd shipped over 200 orders. Then came the local market invites. A feature on a local craft blog. A brand collab with a stationery company. I watched her come alive again, slowly but surely. Every sale gave her confidence. Every customer review that praised her creativity and kindness chipped away at the damage Cheryl and Emma had done. And the more I poured into her success, the more I found myself climbing out of my own fog. I'm a graphic designer by trade. For years, I'd been stuck at a job where I was basically a human mouse click, churning out corporate flyers for people who didn't know Helvetica from Comic Sans. It paid the bills, but I hated every second of it. Helping Lila reminded me that I had something to offer too. So I dusted off some old side projects. Started freelancing on the weekends. Redesigned a logo for a friend's coffee shop. Took on a brand refresh for a nonprofit. The gigs picked up. One night, Lila walked in and caught me working late. "You know," she said, "you don't look miserable anymore." I smiled. I don't feel miserable anymore. By the end of summer, I'd made enough from freelance work to consider quitting my full-time job. I hesitated. Old fears crept in. What if I failed? What if the income dried up? But Lila looked me in the eye and said, "If you don't bet on yourself now, when will you?" So I took the leap. Put in my 2 weeks. And just like that, we were both working from home. Building something together. Supporting each other. Without the noise. Without the guilt. Without the family drama weighing us down. It wasn't all perfect. We had slow weeks. Frustrations. Printer meltdowns. But it felt real. Ours. And through it all, my family stayed silent. Except for one time, in August. My dad called. I let it ring. Then again, the next day. This time I picked up, curious. He didn't apologize. He didn't ask about Lila. He just said, Emma's planning a big birthday bash next month. Cheryl wants to know if you're coming. She's hoping you two can patch things up. My mouth went dry. I waited for him to say more. Anything. He didn't. So I said, are you calling because you want us there? Or because she told you to? There was a pause. Then he said, look, I don't want this to drag on. It's family, Drew. We move on. That's what we do. That's what you do, I thought. You bury it. Pretend nothing happened. Expect everyone else to smile through the pain. I said, tell Cheryl we're not interested. He sighed. You're really going to hold a grudge over one dinner? One dinner, I repeated. Do you even know what you did? What she did? She was trying to make the night special for everyone. You overreacted. I almost laughed. Overreacted. I'm not going to explain this to you again, I said. We're done bending over backward to be part of a family that doesn't want us. Then I hung up. And this time, I didn't feel guilty. I felt free. That fall, Lila got invited to speak on a panel about small business branding. She wore a yellow dress and talked about creativity and burnout, and how sometimes the things that break you lead to the things that build you back up. I watched from the front row, grinning like an idiot. Later, she told me, I said all that because of you. I kissed her forehead. I rebuilt because of you. And that was true, because while my dad and Cheryl were still throwing parties with pink banners and glitter tiaras, Lila and I were building a life they'd never understand. One rooted in respect, support, real partnership. But I'd be lying if I said I didn't still think about that night sometimes. About how they stole something that didn't belong to them. How they hijacked a moment meant for someone who's done nothing but show grace and kindness, even to people who didn't deserve it. And yeah, I could have let it go. Could have taken the high road and forgotten the whole thing. But the thing about hitting rock bottom is that once you start climbing, you see everything differently. You see who's cheering you on. You see who is weighing you down. And sometimes, you realize the best revenge isn't just success. Sometimes, the best revenge is finally letting the truth come to light. Which is exactly what I was about to do. But not in the way anyone expected. There's something liberating about deciding you have nothing left to prove. For years, I'd been walking on eggshells around my dad's house, trying not to come off too sensitive, too bitter, too dramatic. I kept my mouth shut when Emma's name was plastered all over every family group chat. When she got the biggest slice of attention at every gathering. When my father spoke about her with pride in his voice he never once had for me. But after Lila and I rebuilt our lives, after we finally stepped away from the chaos and chose peace over proximity, I began to feel something I hadn't in a long time. Control. Not control over them. People like Cheryl and Emma never give that up willingly, but control over my own story, my narrative. And the more I leaned into it, the more I realized this wasn't about petty revenge. It was about setting the record straight, about standing up for the woman I loved, and maybe giving them a little taste of their own medicine. It all started with a message request. A woman named April reached out on Instagram. I didn't recognize her at first, but when I clicked her profile, I saw a familiar face. She'd been one of Emma's bridesmaids at Cheryl's second wedding, back when Emma was still in high school. Her bio said she was now a lifestyle blogger, and judging by her 40K followers and well-curated brunch posts, she was doing well for herself. Her message was short. Hey Drew, I know this is random, but I've been meaning to say, I was at that birthday dinner. What they did to Lila was disgusting. I'm so sorry. That caught my attention. I thanked her, and we started chatting. Turns out, she had been at the dinner as a +1 of one of Emma's influencer friends. She'd only come for networking, but ended up witnessing the whole train wreck. You could feel how awkward it was, she wrote. And Emma acting like it was totally normal? Gross. Then she sent me a photo. It was from that night. Someone had snapped a picture of Emma standing in front of the giant, Happy Birthday Emma banner, with Lila in the background, completely out of focus, standing beside the bathroom hallway, arms folded tightly, eyes staring off. The contrast was brutal. April followed it up with, honestly, if people knew how calculated Emma and Cheryl are, their perfect image would crumble overnight. I asked her what she meant. And that's when things started falling into place. April told me that Cheryl and Emma had been working hard to position Emma as the face of a new wellness collective aimed at women in their 20s. It was a mix of online coaching, product placements, and retreats. Very curated, very aesthetic, all about empowerment and inner peace. Emma had even launched a new Instagram under the brand name Glow with Emma, filled with pastel quotes and daily affirmations. The account had just passed 100K followers. She wants to be a brand, April said. She's pitching herself to podcast networks and pitching retreats to brands. If something ugly went public, that image would crack real fast. Now, let me pause here and make something clear. I wasn't out to destroy anyone's life. But when someone builds a public persona on lies that hurt the people I love, I think it's fair to shine a little light on the truth. Not as vengeance, but as balance. And now, I had a window. Over the next few weeks, I did my homework. I combed through every public video, every caption, every Emma tip of the day she posted. Most of it was harmless fluff. How to do a vision board, how to drink more lemon water, but sprinkled in were subtle digs. Passive-aggressive phrases like, don't let jealous people dim your shine, or surround yourself with people who celebrate you, not compete with you. One post stood out. It was a video with soft piano music where Emma looked tearfully into the camera and said, when people tried to sabotage my birthday, I didn't fight back. I chose love, because that's who I am. It had over 600,000 views. The comments were full of hearts and, you're so strong. And people can be so toxic, girl. I felt sick. Lila hadn't even spoken at that dinner. She didn't storm out. She didn't scream. She quietly left after being ignored and humiliated. And now she was being cast as the villain in Emma's self-pity saga? No, not this time. That's when I started planning. The timing was too perfect. Emma's upcoming Glow with Emma launch event was scheduled for October. An in-person retreat where she was charging $800 per person for a weekend of emotional release, luxury picnics, and sisterhood. She'd booked a vineyard 2 hours away and already had over 150 people signed up. And guess who else was planning to be there? Cheryl. She was handling the registration and logistics, and, according to April, was using her husband's connections, aka my dad, to secure permits and press coverage. They even had a local lifestyle magazine scheduled to attend and run a feature piece on Emma's rise as a wellness influencer. It was all about image, which gave me the perfect target. I didn't want to crash the event. I didn't want to make a scene. I wanted to undermine the foundation, quietly, surgically, just like they'd done to Lila. First, I made a call to a friend of mine named Jalen. Jalen runs a small production studio and used to freelance with me on graphic design projects. He also happens to be dating someone who works at the very magazine set to cover Emma's retreat. I asked him, off the record, if they'd be open to a fuller picture of the event and its host. He hesitated. You're not asking me to sabotage a story, are you? No, I said. I'm asking you to make sure the story is real. Because the woman they're planning to spotlight built her brand on someone else's tears. And I have the receipts. I sent him the video clip of Emma's fake crying. Then I sent him the picture April had taken at the dinner, the one with Lila blurred in the background. Then I sent him a private document I'd been working on for weeks, a detailed timeline of what actually happened at the birthday dinner, with quotes, photos, screenshots of Cheryl's text, Emma's passive-aggressive messages, Lila's original birthday invite design, even the invoice from the restaurant showing my name as the one who paid the deposit. Jalen whistled. You weren't kidding. He promised to pass it along. Next, I called Amanda, Lila's co-worker who had been at the dinner, and asked if she'd be willing to share her version of events with a writer from the magazine, anonymously. She didn't even hesitate. Absolutely. What they did to Lila was vile. Then I reached out to April again. I've got something, she said. Screenshots from a group chat Emma was in with some other influencer girls. She was bragging about how she stole the party and how Drew will get over it once he sees how much press I get. Want him? Yes, I said. Yes, I do. At that point, I was building a case file bigger than a courtroom drama, and I wasn't planning to just hand it over to the press. I had a more poetic idea. I built a website. A clean, simple one. It didn't name names. It didn't accuse anyone of anything directly. It simply laid out a story, told from the perspective of a husband trying to do something kind for his wife, and how it was quietly hijacked. It included excerpts from the speech I would have given that night. It included photos, quotes, and a gentle reflection on what happens when people prioritize attention over kindness. The title? This was her night. I didn't publicize it. Not right away. I waited. Because there was one more piece. One thing that would guarantee it couldn't be ignored. Lila. I asked her if she wanted to write something for the website. Something small. Just a note. She stared at the blank page for a long time. Then she wrote, I never wanted a spotlight. I just wanted to feel seen. It's hard to explain what it's like to be erased in real time, to have people smile at you while tearing your name off the wall. But I've learned that silence is not grace. Kindness doesn't mean surrender. And I'm not invisible anymore. When I read it, I knew we were ready. All we had to do was wait for the event. And when Emma's big day arrived, when the magazine posted their glowing pre-event teaser, when the guests began flooding the vineyard in sundresses and flower crowns, I activated the site. One link, one anonymous Twitter post, one Reddit thread, and within hours, this was her night started making the rounds. Quietly, subtly, until it wasn't so quiet anymore. Until people started asking questions. Until someone at the retreat whispered, Hey, did you read that post? And that's when the real fallout began. The first text came in 2 hours after I launched the site. It was from April. People at the retreat are whispering. Some of them are literally reading it on their phones while Emma's talking. I sat on our back porch, phone in hand, Lila beside me, both of us watching the sun dip behind the neighbor's fence. The air was still, like it was holding its breath. Then the second text came. Amanda this time. The article's been pulled. I blinked. What article? I wrote back. The profile piece. On Emma. It's gone. The mag just deleted the teaser from Insta 2. Whole comment section disappeared. I refreshed the page myself. Gone. Vanished without a trace. Emma had spent the last 3 months promoting this event like it was her coronation. She teased it on every platform, hinted at exciting coverage, promised her followers something that would put Glow with Emma on the map. That profile was the centerpiece of her personal brand. Now, poof. I turned to Lila. They pulled it. She tilted her head. Already. Yup. She smiled, but didn't say anything. She didn't have to. By the next morning, things were spiraling. Emma posted a vague story, just a blurry selfie of her with the caption, When people try to drag your name through the mud because they can't stand your light. It got traction, sure. But in the comments, the tone had shifted. People weren't clapping back at the haters anymore. They were asking questions. One user wrote, Are you talking about that story going around about the birthday party? Is it true? Another posted, I really hope this isn't about the girl whose dinner got hijacked. That was awful. Emma didn't respond. Instead, Cheryl stepped in. She posted a long-winded Facebook status calling the whole thing a cruel smear campaign from a bitter ex-family member and accused certain people of spreading lies to ruin a young woman's career. It would have sounded more convincing if she hadn't ended it with, Some people just can't handle when others shine brighter than them. That line backfired spectacularly. A few of Cheryl's own relatives, yes, her own, started commenting under the post. I was at that dinner. One cousin wrote. Lila looked like she was going to cry the whole night. You guys didn't even acknowledge her. Someone else wrote. This isn't the first time Emma made everything about herself. I remember when she wore white to Drew and Lila's wedding. Then came the screenshots. Anonymous accounts began posting bits and pieces of the group chat April had leaked to me. The one where Emma bragged about hijacking the party, how she deserved a big night, and how Lila should be grateful for even being mentioned. They weren't doctored. There was no spin. Just plain, brutal honesty. Emma tried to deny it. Said the messages were fake. Then one of the girls in the chat confirmed it was real. The dominoes fell hard after that. Sponsors started quietly distancing themselves. A wellness tea company removed Emma's discount code from their website. A skincare brand untagged her on their product page. The Glow with Emma account started bleeding followers. 10K in a day. Then 20K. Her retreat attendance for day 2 dropped by nearly half. People left the vineyard mid-session. No shouting. No picketing. Just quiet disappointment. Just people who didn't want to support someone who built her empire on erasing someone else's joy. Lila didn't post anything. She didn't need to. Her story, had done what it needed to. For the first time in years, my side of the family saw the truth. A few relatives reached out. Some apologized. Some just said they finally understood. I didn't respond to most of them. Not out of malice, just peace. Sometimes people need to sit in the silence they created. The only call I did take was from my dad. He sounded tired, embarrassed, like someone who realized the golden pedestal he'd built was now wobbling. I didn't know it was that bad, he said quietly. You never wanted to know? I replied. He was quiet for a moment. Then, is there any way we can fix this? I looked across the room at Lila, who was sitting at her desk, gently packing a new journal order into tissue paper, humming under her breath. No, I said, but we're okay. We're more than okay. He sighed. I'm sorry, Drew. For all of it. I believed him. But I also knew that sorry didn't put the candles back on Lila's cake. It didn't give her back the toast she never got, the slideshow she never saw, or the look on her face when we walked into that restaurant. So I said, I appreciate the call, and hung up. And that was the last time I spoke to him. The months that followed were quiet, peaceful. Lila's shop kept growing. She started donating a portion of her sales to women's shelters. She got invited to a local artist collective. One of her bookmarks ended up in a celebrity's book club post. I took on more design clients. Launched a small business course online. We collaborated on a series of journal templates and digital art packs that took off more than we expected. Our home felt lighter. No more tiptoeing around texts from Cheryl. No more should we go to this thing for Emma debates. We were just us. Happy. Whole. Building something with no strings, no shadows. And Emma? She tried to claw her way back. Posted teary-eyed apologies that felt more like damage control than reflection. Rebranded her account twice. Changed her profile bio from Glow with Emma to just a girl trying to heal. But the internet doesn't forget. The damage was done. And the funny thing? I never revealed it was me. The site? Still anonymous. Still live. Still circulating every few months when someone rediscovers it. The truth didn't need my name attached. The story spoke for itself. Some say revenge is best served cold. But I think the best revenge is clarity. Not chaos. Not confrontation. Just the calm unveiling of the truth and watching it do what it always does. Set people free. One afternoon, about a year later, Lila and I returned to the restaurant where it all happened. They'd remodeled since then, new paint, different lighting, even some new staff, but the back room was still there. We asked for it. The hostess paused. Special occasion? Lila smiled. Yes, she said, reaching across the table to take my hand. It's his birthday. And this time, when the cake came out, it had both our names on it. Because this time, it was really ours. And no one could take it from us again.